will usher in the Jewish festival of Purim. For some couples, they're unable to celebrate the month of Adar nor any other month. All too often, any festival or time of celebration is masked by a lingering thought of when will it be my turn? When will I be granted the gift of parenthood? When will I be granted the gift of life? They glance outside on Purim Day and they see a parade of costumed children, a wicked Haman, a saintly Mordechai, a beautiful bride, but alas, the costumed child is not their own. They silently ask, with staggering faith and hope, when will I no longer have to wait anxiously in a doctor's waiting room just to be told it's inconclusive or it's unexplained? Silently hoping that perhaps, just perhaps, the nurse read the hormone level incorrectly this time. How many times have couples heard the words failed cycle being uttered off people's lips? COVID saying, Josie, I don't need you, just present. Nothing to failure, really. Tonight, I feel the atmosphere is paradoxical. There are dual feelings present. On the one hand, it's a night of praise and gratitude, and on the other hand, it's a night of petition and prayer. Praise, as the organization can look back at how many Jewish children have been born, and how many generations of Jewish continuity are attributable to this fund and its donors. On the other hand, it's a night of petition and prayer for those couples that have yet to be blessed, for those that are still stuck in the darkness of dawn before the sun has arose. As Jews, we say Hallel at a time like this. The Hallel prayer has two themes. On the one hand, we say Hoylul Hashem ki toiv ki lo elam chasdoi. We thank Hashem for His kindness which endures and lasts forever. But in the next breath, we say Ono Hashem Moshiach. We say, please God, save us now. As Jews, we celebrate our achievements, but we don't live with the status quo. Just because someone is healthy today does not mean that he'll be healthy tomorrow. Just because a mother is pregnant today does not mean that that pregnancy will be sustained. Somehow the national life of the Jewish people works, that joy and sorrow are inevitably intertwined. It's at this point that I'd like to pay homage to those that spearhead the fund, Saul and Suzanne Sackstein, who out of their own pain bore a concept that has created generations of Jewish continuity. Hundreds of children that now get up every morning and attend a Jewish day school and say brachot. Little boys that hold their father's hand walking to shul on a Friday evening. Little girls that stand next to their mother on a Friday night and light candles, ushering peace into their own homes. I would also like to acknowledge Kate Kashuni, who has also been involved in the fund since inception. This amazing team has now been extended to Tanya Rubin, Esther Unterslap, Cara Stoller, Zvi Sacks, and of course Rabbi Fox in all aspects of Halacha and Hashgacha. Some of you may have heard the story before. Rabbi Kron, a well-known Moel and rabbi from Monsey, from New York, had a study partner whose son was battling with infertility. Rabbi Kron periodically would ask after the son's welfare. After 5 years, after one evening, one study session, Rabbi Kron said out of empathy to his study partner, "It's been 5 years and still no salvation, still no child." To which his study partner replied, "Rabbi Kron, you are incorrect. It's not 5 years, it's 60 months. This in a small way quantifies what a couple goes through when they go through the test of infertility. The lonely days turn into lonely weeks, and the lonely weeks turn into even lonelier months and years. On our own personal journey, going through 9 procedures, including a few miscarriages, we thought each time we were prepared on a practical level. However, one is never really prepared on an emotional level. The pain is as fresh and as potent each time. Hope was always in the stratosphere and so vividly alive, and then suddenly again all lost. Every day, the desperation and stress of not knowing if our cycle was successful or if the heartbeat was viable, requesting, or rather pleading, that this one should survive, that this soul should be given a chance at life. I have a vivid picture of my wife Shira and I getting up in the early hours of the morning before the sun had arose to make our way to the doctor's rooms. This was in order that we could be there first, in order that my wife could get back to her class which she starts teaching at 8. The ritual went like this. We would walk into the lift to take us to the doctor's office on the 2nd floor, and her words are always the same. Zvi, whatever it is, we will get through it together. Many times, that is exactly what we had to do. We would go home, wipe away the tears, give Tanya and Suzanne a call, and put a smile back on our faces. Infertility puts major strain on a marriage. My wife, in honesty, was stronger and more resilient than I was. I remember Shira telling me, Zvi, I'm not hurt, I'm not bitter, I'm not even angry. I'm just alone and afraid. Shira early on resolved that bitterness would have no place in her vocabulary. She recognized that bitterness could twist one's whole core personality and corrode a person's resources and strength. In her words, and I quote, "It would have held me back from full participation in my nieces and nephews' births and milestones. It would have constricted my own flow of love and giving, when that is indeed what I needed most." There were also more light and comical moments. We traveled to Israel to see a top doctor in a specific field. We walked into his rooms in Herzliya, overlooking the beach with an exquisite view. The interior of his rooms looked and smelled more like a falafel stand than a surgery. We arrived there at 9, as was our appointment time. The nurse ushered us in and then proceeded to tell us not only did they not have a credit card machine, but somehow they didn't abide by Israel fiscal standards and only British pounds would be accepted. She then proceeded to tell us that the doctor had been delayed for about 3 hours. We promptly asked if we could return. We got into our swimming costumes, and instead of sitting and hearing medical terms and drug names, we sat on the beach from 9 till about 12 till the doc was available. Let me tell you, he didn't batter an eyelid when I came in with a wet costume. Just to put your mind at ease, he was and still is a great physician, probably one of the best in the world. I think Dr. Yossi and Dr. Govitz could confirm that. The inspiring thing sitting in her waiting room was sitting next to an ultra-Orthodox couple. The husband was frantically making tzitzis while his wife secured the corner so that he could tie the knots. He acted with the care of an artist and the speed of a manufacturing line. I tried to buy a pair from him, but by that time I was left with a few mere English pence. He gave me a pair out of goodwill, now then a heartfelt blessing that we too should be blessed with a child as we parted ways. Sitting next to them in this cramped waiting room was a couple who weren't religious at all. He, an RDF Air Force pilot, cloaked in all his gear. His wife, a trained geneticist. There was one thing that bounded us all together, no matter our diverse backgrounds: the sheer desperation to bring new life into the world. For each lady to have it, to hold and to cherish a child of their own. People ask us, how did we get through it? The answer is quite simple: the care, and the love of those surrounding us, our parents, friends, family, and of course Malka Ella. 2 episodes come to mind. Shira has a friend who organized weekly that the book of Tehillim be said in her merit. Suzanne was part of the group, my mother-in-law was part of the group. There was not a week missed in 2 years. Weekly, a WhatsApp message would go out in order to finish the quota. The crazy thing is, neither Shira nor I ever knew about it. When our daughter was born, a WhatsApp message was sent out that said, our tefillahs have been answered. All I can say, as the recipient, is who is like you, O people of Israel. The second episode that comes to mind, we had just gone through a difficult procedure and I was sitting next to my father, who himself is a medical doctor, discussing our case. And I remember saying to him, but the medical journals say X, and all the publications say Y, this is the statistics. He gently shrugged and replied, I know of a different medical journal whose study is foolproof. It's called the Torah. It's called the Bible. Avram and Sarah, they bore a child. He was 100 and she was 90. This person gave me renewed hope. We are a people that understand and we live with statistics, but we don't seal our faith in them. The theme tonight is hope, faith, and life. I would like to share with you a Talmudic passage regarding the story of Purim. The Jews had a final decree that they were all to be annihilated, all to be killed, all to be destroyed. Men, woman, and child, all destroyed in one day. And the Talmud continues that Haman went to go see and inquire as what the Jews were doing in their last hours, in their last days. And the Talmud relates that he found Mordechai teaching the Jewish children about a certain flour offering that was bought in the Beis HaMikdash, that was bought in a holy temple. In Hebrew, it's called kamitzah. Offering, it's got three fingers breadth full of flour that was bought. The Talmud relates that when Haman saw this, it was at this stage that he knew he could not win. It was at this stage that he understood that his plans were for naught. The Vizhlitzer Rebbe, Reb Moshe Yeshua Hager, a great Hasidic master whose own daughter suffered from infertility for 10 years, until she had one child, and that child today leads the Belz community, another Hasidic sect. And he asks over here poignantly, why was it specifically at this stage that he knew he wouldn't be able to defeat the Jewish people? Why, when he saw Jewish children being taught laws about a temple, that's when he understood, that's when the wind was taken out of his sails. And the Vizhlitzer Rebbe, Reb Moshe Yeshua Hager, just to understand the context of when he said this, his own daughter was struggling with infertility, expounds, and he says, here was a man, Mordechai Tzadik, who was leading his people to the slaughterhouse. He was about to get destroyed. The children were about to be annihilated, and they were worrying themselves with the minute laws of the temple service. This was a temple that they would never live to see. This was a sacrifice that they would never merit to bring. But yet they were involved and they were studying. The Vizhlitzer Rebbe continues and says, Mordechai HaTzadik, the righteous Mordechai, was imparting to these Jewish children that it could all be over. We are at death's door, but a Jew doesn't give up hope. We may be standing at the brink of obliteration, but we never submit to hopelessness. Yes, we can feel disappointment. Yes, we can feel setback. We can feel displeasure, but not despair. We as a Jewish people, we cannot surrender to suffering. Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen, also a Hasidic master who lived in the 1850s, mid-1800s. Great thinker, philosopher, writes, Ein Yehudi l'Isyash Kral, lo bin akuf, lo bin neshama. A Jew doesn't give up hope, whether it pertains to his physical well-being or whether it pertains to his spiritual well-being. I will end off with a short story in the Warsaw Ghetto, where a Jewish woman fell pregnant, and somehow she managed to leave the ghetto walls, and a kind German lady, who happened to also be a gynecologist, examined her and said that if you go back to the ghetto, neither you nor the child will survive the living conditions, the disease. Not you, not the child will make it. The German gynecologist said to her, I'm willing to hide you in my basement. To which the lady replied, I've got a husband in the ghetto, I'm not leaving him. She said, bring him as well. To which the lady replied, I've got parents. She said, bring them as well. She said, I've got parents-in-law, bring them as well. At the end, there were 20 people living in the basement of this lady's house. She looked after them to the risk of her own life, feeding them, clothing them. This was all while the Gestapo stayed on the top floor of the building. The family survived the war through this woman's kindness, and the family emigrated to America. Many years later, one of the grandchildren got married. The family invited this German lady, by now an elder woman, to attend the wedding. At the wedding, they placed her at the center of the dance floor and then proceeded to announce that any offspring, any child that came from these 20 people that were in the basement should come onto the dance floor and dance around this lady. At the end of the night, there were 250 people, many of them small children. We see the heroic actions of one lady and the generations of people that are attributable to her brave act. Perhaps our choice is not so overt or difficult, or perhaps our choice is not even that brave. But tomorrow morning, there will be a couple that will have to face the concerned look on a doctor's face, and they don't have the emotional strength or the financial means to go through it again. The question is, what will you and I be doing for this couple, and ultimately for the continuity of the Jewish people? I will end off with this. In a few short days, each of us, in our respective shuls and congregations, will read the Megillah, and afterwards, in what is perhaps the most joyous time of the year, the prayer of Shoshan as Yaakov is recited, it's sung, and contained within this prayer is a blessing to those couples that are still suffering. In this prayer it says, that all who hope in you, all those that have faith in you, be embarrassed no longer. All those that take refuge in you, be humiliated no longer. Thank you and good evening.